everyone. Darius Harris here, owner of Career Skyrocket. Welcome to another episode of my Find Your Work series. Today I have one of my friends here, my dear friends, Carrie Farley. And she is doing great things in the community. For as long as I can remember, she's always loved working with youth and young adults. And overall, she's just a helper. Like she's always just been a helping person. If you were to ask anyone from our college days pretty much about Carrie, that's the first thing they would say. She's so nice, always willing to help. And she's turned that passion into working with youth and young adults in her neighborhood. So recently, she has accepted a new position with the CDC. Going to be doing some great things there. I'm super excited for her there. But as I looked over her work history, she's had countless positions working in her community, which I love. You went right back to Trotwood and you're working with these youth and these young adults in various roles. So tell us, Carrie, tell us in your own words what you do.
All right. So, in my own words, I guess I would say I'm an experienced human services professional to sum everything up. I am, like I said, currently a school liaison for the state of Ohio through the Center for Disease Control. Headquarters are in Atlanta, Georgia. And again, I'm just the liaison for the state of Ohio. I also am a CEO for Chosen Generation, which is a nonprofit that I founded. It is a mentoring and now e-mentoring service, because of COVID. So we do e-mentoring as well. And the youth that we service is ages 18 to 24. I do also have some high school students. We revamped our program. So there are still some high school students between the grades of ninth grade and 12th grade that I service, but here moving forward, we're going to service those who are 18 or that population that's kind of forgotten about after they finish and leave high school. And then also I am a recent author. It's been 2 years now since I took that leap and started publishing books. So I am a human services professional, author, CEO, mom, and wife. Those are roles as well.
Awesome. I love that. Those are very important roles.
Yes,
So
yes.
you're doing a lot of different things, a lot of great things. And the thing that I always get from you is this, it's not work for you. To me, it doesn't seem like it's work for you. It seems like there's something that you really would do for free if if you didn't get paid for it. Tell me, what do you love about it? What do you love about the things you do?
Um, so my role in human services, any job that I've taken or anything that I do in that capacity, what I get from it is knowing that, you're not going to be able to see immediate results with some of the youth or people that you work with, but knowing that you're able to plant those seeds in them, someone can come down and water them and, got to get the increase later. But for those that you do see that change, that is so rewarding to me. And it's humbling to know that, wow, here I am in my imperfections and God could use me to help impart something in someone young, and then to see them, grow up and mature, and them to come back and say, you made a difference. I'm like, to God be the glory. So for me, as a human services professional, like that's what makes me love what I do, because I know that God gave it to me. It's like a ministry to me. Money is great, but I feel like, if you don't love what you're doing, there's really no purpose in doing it. Um, then in my CEO role, again, it kind of coincides with human service professional, being a mentor for these young people, helping them figure out what to do with their life, those next steps. Some of them, as soon as they finish high school, their parents are like, you have to get out. And they don't have a plan. They're not prepared, so again, just trying to be a servant to those who may be lost. They may be out here and they don't know what to do, literally. And then all it takes is an adult that cares, or someone older that has the experience, or even if you don't know, someone in your network that you can turn them on to that can help them. And then my most recent role as an author, I've always loved reading, that I love writing. I just never thought that I would actually be an author, but I love it because it's like fun. Growing up as only child, I didn't have anybody to play with, and I just used my imagination for my fun. And so it's kind of cool because, as we get older and we go through things in life, there's a lot of things we can't control in our lives. But when I'm writing, that I can control. As my story, is what I want to write, according to however I want to write it. And it's just fun. It's a great escape.
Right. That's awesome. So you found three different things that you really, really enjoy doing. I love what you said about, if it's not something that you really care about, like, why waste your time doing it?
Hmm. Seriously.
So with that being said, like, do you feel like you like every aspect of what you do? Are there things
Now,
about,
yes.
like, what you do? So like as a youth development worker, as a CEO, as an author, are there things about those things that you don't like?
Hmm.
So what are
So,
those things?
so in the secular world, like the job world, not the entrepreneurial world, but when you're working for a company, I don't like being restricted.
Mm,
That's one thing I don't like, when you actually have to work for a company, or you're working for a bureaucracy or anything, you have to follow their guidelines, you have to play by their rules, something that I hate, feeling boxed in because I don't have my license. Um, it does kind of, basically exclude you from certain positions, even though you have the skill set, you have the experience. But if you don't have that license, you can't do it.
right.
However, the things that are effective for me, things that have worked not just in my program, but for some youth, I realize now if I had that license, I would be restricted. My license would
Mm,
probably be revoked. Because I don't like being boxed in. I don't like being confined. If it's something that's on my heart to do and I know God led me to do it, I'm gonna do it regardless. So that's one thing I know for sure. Two things for sure I didn't like and don't like. Another one would be and being an author, I don't like marketing. Like, I'm just not that type of person. And again, and you kind of hit it on the head, like money's not really a thing for me. It would be great, trust me. I would be a fool to think, I didn't want a lot of money, but that's just not my number one priority when I do things. So it's kind of learning that aspect of things, learning how to market, learning how to put yourself out there, learning how to sell. Like, I hate that. I really do.
I
It's
love
so not me. It's not me.
mentioning that though. Like, I think a lot of people, they get caught up in thinking, hey, wherever I go into, like, it's just gonna be roses every day, and I just love every aspect of it. And I ask everyone the same question, like, do you love every aspect of your work? Because overall, you probably will like most of what you do, but there's always going to be some aspect that you don't like.
And then also, I forgot to mention, if you have a nonprofit, I mean, who likes, researching grants? Who likes learning how to put in and to write these grants and finding funding? Because the nonprofit is hard to get funding out here. And then, you have to make sure that you get an accountant, get a finance person. That's where I messed up. The first time I didn't have a finance person and didn't file everything I was supposed to file, and had to apply for my 501(c)(3) all over again. So that I didn't like for sure. Yeah, those type of things. Yeah,
Right.
don't
So, do you feel like, so right now you're happy, you really love what you do, you found your path, right? Have you ever had a time in your life where you didn't feel like you were doing something you love? And what were you doing?
like. I have. So that was, let me see, which job was that? I would say juvenile court. When I worked for juvenile court, I had two positions. I started as a family life coach, and I was doing really well in that position, happy in that position. And then I ended up getting a promotion after 8 months and was moved to a transition specialist position. So
Mhm.
in that position, you're responsible for, well, coordinator, sorry. So my job was to coordinate transitional services for youth in detention
Mhm.
in three different facilities. So if they were in housed downtown, if they were in Center for Adolescent Services, which is where more of your serious crimes, those kids were, and
Mhm.
then Nicholas Residential Treatment Center. I had to coordinate all those transitional services for those youth going back into the school system. And while I thought it was going to be rewarding, that job, I just, I got to a place in my life where I didn't feel effective.
Mm.
I felt defeated in a way because, um, you know, you would see so many youth and it would come back like a revolving door or, you know, worse, they would be murdered. And so I would say that was like the lowest I felt in my career. And I felt like this is not what I want to do. This is not the route I want to go because I don't want to be on the reactive side of things. I want to be on the preventative side of things. How can we even get programs and do different things to reach the youth before they even get to detention services, if you know what I'm saying.
Mhm.
So I was like, this is not the road I need to be in. I'm more prevention all day. Not responsive service. No, I wanted to be preventative.
Huh. So I think I could relate to you because when I started my career, I worked in youth development. And I kind of work with a lot of those adjudicated youth you're talking about. And yeah, I would see the same thing where they would come right back to the same people, same crowd, and end up somewhere worse. So I definitely hear you that way. What were some of the things that you felt like when you went to work every day, like that made you realize like this wasn't the right position for you?
Um, some of those restrictions um, that I mentioned earlier, like for instance, I was able to develop like a 5 phase system in my program. And I was trying to add like the mentoring component. That's kind of how like my chosen generation program, I really started recruiting more youth at that time because, well, when I left that position, because what I was trying to do with my mentoring program and chosen generation, I was kind of trying to mirror that
Mhm.
downtown to hook some of those kids up, have that a part of their plan, a mentor, someone from the community that would commit to
Hmm.
working with them. So, you know, when you're dealing with different systems and
Yeah.
clearances and all these things, it's like, oh my gosh, there was so many kids slip through the cracks with getting mentors assigned. There are people out there, you know, you can't say there aren't people out there that are willing to do the job, but when you have to go through all the red tape, you
Mhm.
know, it wasn't there. So definitely going into an arena like that and having some pushback and opposition in that regard. In addition to trying to get a reading club started with the boys down there, because, you know, one of the biggest misconceptions they have about, especially our Black boys, is they don't like to read or they
Right.
can't read. And some of them even, you know, they classify them as not being able to read past fourth grade level and third grade level and things of that nature. Well, there were certain books though that we found out, you know, when I'm just talking, having a conversation with some of the youth, and they're like, have you read this book by such and such? And one of the guys, his name is Shantae Kennerly. He's an Ohio native, but I mean, the kids were reading his books, and I know they're past fourth grade reading level. So it's kind of intrigued me. And I'm like, you know, you can't necessarily say they can only read fourth grade reading level. They're reading books that are way beyond that grade level. So I try to present this to, you know, who I needed to, and basically let them know if you give them books that they like reading, or
Right.
if you have them read subjects around what they're interested in, they'll probably, you know, perform better. You know, a lot of times they would even say, well, I just marked X, Y, and Z because I really don't care. So, trying to get some of those programs and things in place and to have opposition, I was just like, oh no, I have to just do something on my own.
I love that. So there's a few different things that I'm hearing. So like you didn't need to change your career completely, right? So you still work with youth, you still do that now, but you were in a position where it seems like you really are passionate about what you do, and you were working with people who wanted to constrict you from doing all the great things you wanted to do. So that's where the frustration seems like it came from. Um, so I say all that to say is like sometimes like we find ourselves in positions where we're not fulfilled, we're not happy, but we need to pinpoint exactly some of those things that are bothering us, that they maybe pivot to a different position. That doesn't mean you have to go to a totally different career.
Right, right,
Yeah,
right.
it seems like you found like the right positions for you, after realizing those things. Your positions beforehand kind of prepared you with knowledge of who you are and the things you like and you don't like. And then you took that information and then you created the right position for yourself.
Yeah, and that's something it just literally took me this long to realize, because going through your careers, especially when you have multiple careers like I've had, you kind of, if you don't understand the path and the process that God is taking you, you can get very frustrated. You can feel like maybe I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe this is not for me.
Right.
But like you pinpointed it, it's like every experience is going to lead to whatever your greater is. Whatever God wants you to do, you have to go through all these experiences and these processes. It's going to help make you for whatever that end goal is.
Right.
So yeah, you definitely hit it on the head. But at first I was just like, what is going on? Like I know what my passion is. I know I love kids. Where am I going to end up in this thing? And I'm finding like when you approach, careers as what it really is. I mean, for me, I don't know everybody's beliefs, but I know mine. I'm a Christian, and it's like it's ministry for me. It's not a job. It's not a career. So when you start wrapping your mind around it's ministry, the things that God puts in you to do, you may not be at a job for 20 years like you planned. You may not retire from that position because he might move you somewhere else.
Mm.
Your time might be up there and he might have some more work for you to do in
Right.
another arena. So, but I feel like it'll always still align with what he put in you. So I know he put the love for kids in me. He put, me wanting to help youth and young adults in me. So however that changes, the
Mm.
core of it, I feel like will never change. It's just the different positions might change.
I agree. I definitely agree. I kind of look at my work as not like work. I look at it as ministry, the same way you do. And he's put me there to impact not only those kids that I work with at my full-time job, but in my business or my coworkers. Like I'm here to impact everyone with his principles, and I'm representing him. Pretty much.
Mhm.
So next question for you is, do you have a hard time turning your work off?
Yeah, 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 yeah. You have to pray with me on this one, brother. So yeah, yeah, that's a hard one, and um my mother-in-law passed. She was a home daycare provider. And so my husband, like, he really is concerned for me because, how she passed, she was very attached to one of her foster youth that she had and they were murdered. And so
Mm.
um, she ended up having a stroke. She was so heartbroken and worried, about what happened. And, it just really upset her. And so, my husband, he was like, you remind me so much of my mother. I don't want you getting so attached to these kids and something happened to you. Um, and that is very hard to do, especially like I said, when you're looking at what you do is not just a 9 to 5. It's not a job. These are lives. So that is hard to turn off, when you're off of work, because, these kids, they're still living in their reality when I go home. And so that is very hard to turn off if you have a heart. First and foremost, it's hard. You can't just look at it like it's just a regular job where maybe you work on a computer, or you work on a phone line, just different things like that. You can't just shut it off and say, okay, it's 5 o'clock, I'm done. Some of the kids that have reached out to me in my mentoring program, sometimes it is like 1 in the morning. I'm a lot better about it now, but it would be like 1 o'clock in the morning. They're thinking about robbing somebody. They're texting me, hey, Miss Farley, I need to talk. If
Right.
that's what it takes to stop you from committing a crime, or possibly even worse, hurting yourself, trying to commit suicide, then I'm there. So again, I have to pray and ask God for wisdom, because, and like I said, with my nonprofit, I'm trying to get more grant funding so I can hire people so I don't have to do everything. But
Right.
but that would help too. You can have staff that you can pay to help do those things so you don't have to do everything. But in the meantime, I have to pray and ask God for balance and wisdom and how to handle things, because again, for young people, their lives don't shut off at 5. Most times they're getting into stuff late at night. So it's just, it's very, very hard. And that's something I am still trying to work out.
I know when I used to work with in youth development with those adjudicated youth, like I would get calls at 2, 3 in the morning on a weekend, and I have to go. And my wife would be like, "What is going on here?" But it's it's like it's
Same.
like I have to.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So um, the next question I have for you is, what advice would you give to people? So, like, what advice would you give to people that are not fulfilled in their careers and they're still kind of searching to discover their path?
Well, number one, I would say they need to hook up with somebody like you that is very good at what you do. You help people with figuring out what it is they like to do. They may need to look at their interests. What are the things you're interested in? You kind of touched on that. Like, I would ask them, if you didn't have to worry about money, you knew your bills were going to be paid, you knew you wouldn't have
Mm.
to struggle financially, what would you do all day, every day if you could?
Right.
I'll start from there. Then too, like I said, I will refer them to you or someone else that is an expert in helping them find out what their career paths are, um, or any type of career guide, and go from there. If they're still kind of like, well, I don't even know, because I've asked that question to some youth, and they're
Mm.
they're like, I don't know what I would do. I'm like, you don't have an interest in something, and some of them will say no.
Right.
So even in that aspect, I'm like, oh,
How can I get
so
how can I get this out of them when they tell you, I don't know,
mhm,
I don't have any ideas? And there's you have to have those tools to be able to get that information out of them.
yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
I mentioned that it was my last question, but I saw that I forgot one. And I was
Mhm.
gonna ask you, how did you find your path? What did you do? What process did you take to kind of find the path where you are?
So, um, let me see my career path. So my career path, I guess you could say, I could lump mentoring and the human services together. So that path I discovered very early. I used to help my mother, who was a retired teacher for Dayton Public Schools.
Hmm.
And so I've always been around youth and always helping youth, even if it was in her classroom, grading papers, or while she was trying to, calm a student down, then I'm just stepping.
Mm-hmm. Did I lose you, Carrie? Still there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Got you back.
Okay.
I lost you a bit. You were saying you kind of started working with your mom as she was a teacher, and then I think that's where you kind of clicked out.
Oh, sorry.
Uh,
But yeah, so it started early working with my mom. She was a fourth grade teacher. She retired um, from Dayton public schools. Like she taught for like 44 years, I believe. So she taught for a long time. So I've always been around you. From there, I ended up at Oakland, shout out Grizzlies, you know.
right.
And and there, I had started out originally wanting to be an elementary education teacher. And then also I had my wanted to minor in African American history.
Hmm.
Well, all of that changed when I took the intro to psychology class. And
Okay.
so from there, I was like, ooh, I think I want to go into psychology. And then I found out, well, you have to have a PhD to actually do anything with in psychology. I'm like, nope, let's try this social work thing and sociology thing because my brain kind of leaned more towards environments do shape a person. So I kind of went into that arena, still not counseling, still not, anything other than that at that point. But that's kind of how it kind of went from there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, After that, um, let's see, I did kind of dibble and dabble in the social work arena.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I worked for Children's Services as an ongoing specialist in Montgomery County. Um, but I still wasn't really fulfilled in that. I kind of wanted to go more of the counseling route, and I thought it was going to be school counseling. So I went into school counseling, finished my master's in school counseling and human services at the same time. Got my mental health certification,
Mm-hmm.
um, and then did my school counseling internship. And I was like, I do not like this, like, because you don't even really get to spend time with the students to
Yeah.
even counsel them. All you're doing is helping prepare them with testing, the
Hmm.
scheduling, all that stuff. Like you really don't even get to like meet with the students like you would think. So I was like, okay, this is not it. But I know I want to work with these young people. And so
Mm-hmm.
from there, that's kind of how I went into my um, working with the juvenile youth that were detained, um, working in the schools and kind of, just loving working with the schools. And again, that just fueled that age range that I knew I wanted to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Being an author, how I went into that. So like I said, I always loved to write. I had already wrote the first book. I wrote that in high school, my senior year.
Mm-hmm.
And I never published it because like my father at the time, he was like a minister. And I was like, oh, I'm not publishing this language and some scenes in there. I just didn't want to disrespect my father. And then my father ended up passing, but when he was in hospice, he just basically said, if it's okay with you, it's okay with me. That was the release I needed. And during that time, also, my husband and I, we were separated. It was just a lot of different emotions. And so I ended up starting to write as part of like my therapy or part of like my coping method during that time. It was just therapeutic. And so that's how the other two books started. And it's just kind of neat to see like the purpose behind that, and I don't even know all the things that God is going to do down the line with even that aspect of it because my husband and we're back together, we reconciled
Awesome.
and there's something with that even, just couple and different people seeing and they're like, how are y'all working through all of that? And I'm like, it's God, so
Right.
again, how I learned my purpose in a lot of different things is the process, is the things you have to go through, those embarrassing things, the hurtful things, the things, the times where you're let down, even in jobs where
Right.
you're not fulfilled. You go through all of those things for the greater purpose down the line. You know.
I like so to me it sounds like you didn't always knew you wanted to go into youth development. So it sounds like you just kind of you knew you were a helper. So that's kind of why
Mhm,
you chose like a helping profession. You
mhm,
knew that from your time working with your mom, but you didn't necessarily know you wanted to go into youth development and then what aspect of youth development that you wanted to go into. And then as you
mhm,
got into your career, like you figured out that there were things that you liked, like you mentioned, like, hey, I became a school counselor and I didn't like it, But the thing that you didn't like was you didn't get the one-on-one. You didn't get that one-on-one attention that you needed, that you probably wouldn't have known unless you got a job or like actually get into the field. And then you found other aspects of about yourself too. And then you, like I mentioned earlier, you took all that information from your experiences and now you have carved out like your niche. Um, and I say all that to say is like you hear about people who like, hey, I grew up always wanting to be a doctor, always wanted to be a lawyer, always wanted to do this, and they actually do it. But when in my experience, it's rare to meet people like that. It's usually they kind of have an idea of what they want to do or not, and then they get a job and they start working, and then they discover the things that they want to do, and they don't settle. So is that your experience? Like I feel like you
Yes.
did not settle. You didn't just stay, oh, I'm working with kids, I'm just gonna stay here, I'm comfortable. You said, I'm working with kids, but it's still not what I want to do. So now let me figure out what else I can do. You try new things.
I feel like you have to, like, it's just in me not to settle. Like, I can't settle. It's like I cannot be unhappy. Like, if this is something I'm gonna do and I call this a career, it has to be meaningful. It has to be purposeful. It has to be fulfilling. If it's not any of those three, I don't want to do it. I don't want any parts.
And plus you're spending like a lot of your time, 70% of your time at this place. Like
Yeah,
I go somewhere and just be unhappy.
right.
Yeah.
Seriously.
So this has been awesome. I think like the information that we talked about is going to really, really inspire people to try new things and find their way. So I really thank you for joining me today. And I want you to continue doing like great things and yeah, just continue helping people and doing the things you love.
Thank you for having me so much, Mr. Harris. I really appreciate you. And I'm really proud of you and what you're doing with this platform. I just hope a lot of people um, get with the program because you're gonna run off with this, sir.
Thank you so much. And